least 2 people have been killed and several others injured in a series of explosions in Afghanistan's Jalalabad city. Earlier today, 3 blasts took place in Jalalabad, the capital of the Nangarhar province, at least one of which allegedly targeted at a Taliban convoy. Now, according to a Taliban official, 2 people have been killed and more than 20 injured in the blasts, including women and children. Nangarhar's health officials, on the other hand, have said that 3 people were killed and 18 wounded in the deadly bombing. The Taliban have launched an investigation into the blast, says the government, to establish the extent of damage and the cause of the explosions. This is the first deadly attack in Afghanistan ever since the US withdrew its troops from the country. There have been instances of explosions and attacks in the last few weeks, but this is the first time that civilian casualties have been reported. Just 2 days ago, there was a rocket attack in Kabul's Khair Khane area, where a series of rockets targeted a power plant in the Afghan capital. No casualties were reported after the incident and no one claimed the attacks. Our correspondent Anas Malik visited the site of the blasts. Take a look.
The city of Kabul heard sound of blasts after 17 days late last night. The target was Chamtana substation, clearly in an attempt to damage the infrastructure, the city's electricity infrastructure. I'm standing at the Chamtana substation, which was targeted by rockets late last night. At least 3 of them landed here, 2 of them at a nearby house within this vicinity of the colony. These are the splitters that you can see that have been damaged as well. This Chamtana station serves as a bridge between the Kabul city and the electricity supply that comes in from elsewhere, from Uzbekistan to be precise. The Taliban came in late last night and they collected material evidence. However, due to darkness, this piece of rocket was perhaps overlooked and it's now lying here as well. All you can see is debris. The pieces of jumpers of these splitters that you can see, they're there as well. And the damaged jumpers are there. The place had caught fire late last night. It was cleared out. No loss of life was, however, reported in these rocket attacks. Anas Malik in Kabul, Afghanistan, for WION World is One.
Jalalabad happens to be the stronghold of the Islamic State in Afghanistan, also known as ISIS-K, the same group that claimed responsibility of the Kabul airport attack that killed more than 170 people, including foreign troops. In retaliation, the United States launched a drone strike at a house near the airport that killed 10 innocent people, a mistake now claimed by America. A top US general has finally admitted that the country made a mistake when it launched a drone strike against suspected IS terrorists in Kabul. The strike had killed 10 civilians, including children. It was carried out during the final days of the US troop pullout from Afghanistan last month. The US Central Commander, General Kenneth McKenzie, has said that the strike was meant to hit a suspected IS operation that had its sights set on attacking the Kabul airport. The US intelligence had quote-unquote reasonable certainty. However, the strike turned out to be what the US calls a tragic mistake.
Now convinced that as many as 10 civilians, including up to 7 children, were tragically killed in that strike. Moreover, we now assess that it is unlikely that the vehicle and those who died were associated with ISIS-K or were a direct threat to US forces. I offer my profound condolences to the family and friends of those who were killed. This strike was taken in the earnest belief that it would prevent an imminent threat to our forces and the evacuees at the airport. But it was a mistake, and I offer my sincere apology. As the combatant commander, I am fully responsible for this strike and its tragic outcome.
According to General McKenzie, US forces had tracked a white car for 8 hours. It was seen near a suspected IS hideout in Kabul. US forces had received intelligence that the site in question was apparently being used to prepare for attacks on Kabul airport. It was believed that the car had been loaded with explosives. The people who died in the US strike included 7 children, and none of the victims were linked to the Islamic State. In fact, one of those killed in the strike was an Afghan man who had worked for a US aid group. McKenzie defended the US operation as a self-defense strike. He said that there were concerns about an attack on the airport in the last days of the chaotic evacuation. The Pentagon and US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin have also apologized to the relatives of those killed
As the Secretary says in this statement, we apologize, and we will endeavor to learn from this horrible mistake. And to that end, he has directed a thorough review of the investigation just completed by U.S. Central Command.
Remember, on August 26, an ISIS-K suicide bomber had killed scores of Afghans and 13 U.S. service members at the Kabul airport. The attack came at a time when many Afghans and foreign nationals were making desperate attempts to flee Afghanistan as they feared Taliban rule. Now, for more details, we are now getting our correspondent Anas Malik live from Kabul. Anas, thanks for joining us. What can you tell us about the recent explosions in Jalalabad city?
Well, at least 3 explosions took place today in Jalalabad city, Priyanka, and one of them actually near or on a Taliban ranger's vehicle. It is still unclear whether they were targeted, whether it was a freshly planted IED or they stepped on an old, formerly planted IED that was not so known, and then they had stepped on it, and then the reason it caused explosions. There were at least 3 explosions in Jalalabad. What sources are confirming, sources within the Taliban are confirming to me. 2 people have lost their lives. At least 21 were injured. Given that 2 have lost their lives, so at least 19 are injured, 2 have lost their lives. And these 3 explosions, the nature of which is still unknown, but they are being hinted at as IED explosions. As I said, it is still unclear whether they were freshly planted IEDs or previously planted IEDs on which they had stepped on, and that had caused the triggers and explosions. Priyanka?
Right. Anas, you of course have been getting us all the updates from Kabul since before the Taliban took control of the country. What can you tell us about the Pentagon's U-turn on the drone strike?
Well, you're right. WION has been here. I have been here in Afghanistan since the past 53 days now, and we've been literally been to the length and breadth of the country. More than 18 provinces we've covered in the past 53 days, and we've seen it all literally. The fall of the Ghani government, the takeover of the Taliban, and this 29th August drone strike that you have just referred to. This drone strike was first of its kind because we've previously never seen the US attacking or conducting any major drone strike in the capital city of Kabul. So this was the first as it exited Afghanistan. The US entered Afghanistan under the pretext of revenge, and it exited Afghanistan under the pretext of revenge as well, while carrying out a revenge drone strike which had basically killed innocents. At least 10 innocent people were killed, but it was writing on the wall because WION had investigated, other media organization had also investigated, that had compelled the US government to come out with this first of its kind apology that they had gotten the wrong man. So it was writing on the wall. They have done an apology, more sorts of, but the family of Aimal Ahmadi, the brother of Zemarai Ahmadi who was targeted, Aimal still awaits a formal apology from the US, a formal contact even for that matter from the US side. There is no contact, so there is no point of an apology as well, and he says that he's heard it all from the media. Priyanka?
Anas, my final question for you, is there any clarity if the US has reached out to the victims' families in Afghanistan?
Well, no, I was there earlier today at the very house. We did a live from there as well, and WION was one of the first channels to have reported from inside the house, from right after hours after the explosion took place. Even as late as today in the morning, sometime around 11 local time today, it's roughly 6 hours back, Aimal Ahmadi, I spoke to him, and he clearly said that nobody from the US side has reached out to him. In fact, he is awaiting contact. And all he's heard is from the media. In fact, when I asked him that whether the Taliban have reached out to him, he said that the Taliban did come, a 3-member delegation from the Taliban did come to his house on the day of the attack, and after that there has been radio silence from the government in power as well, those in power as well, that means the Taliban. So no contact has been made from the US, no contact has been made from the Taliban, and the family as yet awaits justice. Priyanka?
Anas Malik, thank you so much for joining us from Kabul, Afghanistan with all those updates, and thank you for joining us on WION at this hour. WION World is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.